Hey guys, welcome back, and a little update on a story we have not heard about for a long time here. So, just kind of a refresher, the lawsuit involving the cinematographer on the movie set Rust, a film that was being produced by Alec Baldwin, who was also starring in the film, where I'm going to say allegedly or accidentally, because I don't want to say anything wrongfully here, but where he inevitably was behind the gun, pulled the trigger that killed the cinematographer and injured one of the other producers on set. That lawsuit between the cinematographer's family and Alec Baldwin got settled back in October, I want to say. Yeah, October 5th, this article from the AP came out, in which the cinematographer's husband said that, he doesn't blame Alec Baldwin. He felt like it was just a freak accident, and so they had a settlement in their lawsuit, and that kind of went away. And then it seemed that a lot of the charges, the criminal charges that had been brought against Alec Baldwin and that were supposedly in the works, were just going to get swept under the rug. He had some weird situations out in public where he was like yelling at people and stuff, yelling at reporters over this whole thing, acting very, very confrontational. I'm not going to say whether or not that was justified, but let's just say Alec Baldwin has a history of being a little over the top with his emotion and his anger. And recently there's been a story about how the armorer on set, the one who was ultimately responsible for making sure that all the weapons were being handled properly, that everybody received the proper training, that none of the rounds were being mixed in that were, supposed to be dummy rounds or blanks, that none of them were getting live rounds mixed in. Well, allegedly, there were beer cans and live rounds that had been used on set or off set because they're in the desert. People were, drinking and shooting targets out there when they weren't filming, apparently. And so this young lady, who is not a diversity hire, she's a nepotism hire. Her father is a famous armorer, apparently, in Hollywood. And so Hannah Gutierrez Reed got the job, unfortunately, and now there are two people that got shot, one of them fatally. And so apparently the DA was going after her because of the fact that they wanted her to explain how the live rounds got on set. She declined because her attorney said that she needed to not incriminate herself. And then, sure enough, later on, they hit her with more charges a couple days later. So she is still being prosecuted, or at least they're bringing charges against her for her part in the shooting. Now today, we have breaking news that Alec Baldwin has been indicted by a grand jury in New Mexico for the involuntary manslaughter of Helena Hutchins back in 2021. I feel like this has been so long ago. I can't believe it's already 2024. This thing has just dragged on and on and on and on. So from Colin Rugg here on Twitter, it says, if convicted, Baldwin could face up to 18 months in prison. Now, if you recall, he did claim he didn't even pull the trigger. He says, he didn't pull the trigger and he doesn't understand how she got shot, even though he was the one ultimately responsible for checking the rounds in the gun. And this is a little bit of basic gun safety. If you're a person that is on a movie set, even if they hand you a weapon and you believe it's got blanks in there or if it's got dummy rounds, you still are responsible for being the one to check the chamber, check the barrel, check every piece of the gun to make sure nothing fatal can be a result of your actions. I mean, he is ultimately, whether you like it or not, the one responsible for what happens. The only question is, will he be charged? And Variety has an article on it here. I'm not going to go through too much of it because the facts kind of speak for themselves, but we'll go through a little bit of it. It says, Alec Baldwin has been indicted on charges of involuntary manslaughter as prosecutors once again seek to hold the actor accountable for the on-set death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Baldwin, who is 65, was initially charged in the case in January of 2023. I remember this, it took a while for them to bring charges, and then nothing has really happened since. The charges were dropped 3 months later after Baldwin's defense team raised questions about whether his Colt 45 was functioning properly when fired. Hutchins was preparing to film a scene with Baldwin at a ranch near Santa Fe, New Mexico in October of 2021 when the gun went off. Baldwin has maintained that he did not pull the trigger, which I do believe at the time the FBI went through and looked at the weapon and said that there's no way it could have just gone off without the trigger being pulled. In fact, it says two special prosecutors, Kerry Morrissey and Jason Lewis, sent the gun for further forensic testing last summer. Their experts, Lucian and Michael Hagg, reconstructed the gun, which had been broken during FBI testing, and concluded that it could only have been fired by the pull of the trigger. It says the fatal accident was the consequence of the hammer being manually retracted to its fully rearward and cocked position, followed at some point by the pull or rearward depression of the trigger. Now, I don't have any hammer-fired pistols, but what little I do know of them, it does seem that it could have been him mishandling the gun, resulting in the hammer hitting and firing the bullet. I mean, it is possible that it, I assume, caused the bullet to get triggered and fire. It's It's entirely possible. Something happened on his end where he was responsible for the bullet leaving the chamber of the gun. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. Although Alec Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the test's finding and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver. So Morrissey and Lewis said in October that they intended to take the case to a grand jury within 2 months, and sure enough, here we are. So basically, the long and the short of it is, he could face up to 18 months in prison. I doubt that that'll happen. And even Helena Hutchins' attorney now says the charges are warranted, even though... not Helena Hutchins' attorney. Well, it was Helena Hutchins' husband's attorney. Says now that the charges are warranted. Their attorney says, "We support the charges, will fully cooperate with this prosecution, and fervently hope the justice system works to protect the public and hold accountable those who break the law." Now, again, there is some poetic justice to the fact that Alec Baldwin is very anti-Second Amendment, very anti-firearms, anti-conservatives, but I don't want to see anybody charged for things that they're not absolutely responsible for. But unfortunately, in his case, when it comes down to it, yes, the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez, she is also going to be responsible. At least she should certainly have charges brought against her if she's the reason that live rounds were on set in the first place. But unfortunately, they both share responsibility because of the fact that she was in charge of the firearms and he was the one that pulled the trigger. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think we're going to get an actual trial out of this where we're going to have a fair verdict, where it's going to be, well, the verdict being what it is, I'm talking more about sentencing. Are we going to actually have a real sentence, or is he going to get the Hollywood treatment, slap on the wrist, and get out in 5 days? Let me know what you guys think down below, and I will see you on the next one. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching the video. We do have 2 channels, one for daily uploads, the other one for more of my live streams and hot takes. Links to both are down below, as well as the ability to join as a channel member for as little as $3 a month, and that'll greatly help us out. Much appreciated. We also have links to our Etsy accounts down below, as well as our website. We also have Locals and Subscribestar. If you didn't want to support us on YouTube, you can support us through those. Thanks again for being here, and we will see you on the next one.